Have you ever heard a sound that shouldn't be there? A song playing in the woods at midnight. Footsteps in your hallway when you live alone. Eyes watching you. From a window that belongs to an empty house. Tonight I'll share with you 3 terrifying true stories. They don't begin with ghosts. They begin with a home. A place that should feel safe. Until it doesn't. In story 1, a couple moves into a peaceful home by the forest, but find themselves haunted by eerie music and silent figures that appear when the lights go out. In story 2, a man wakes to footsteps and a masked stranger already inside his house and realizes it might not be their first visit. And in story 3, a man stares across a quiet canal at a neighbor who shouldn't exist and finds out too late that some watchers are no longer human. These stories are real, and once you hear them, you'll start to listen more carefully to every creak, knock, and whisper around you. So turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and ask yourself, what would you do if the thing watching you never blinked and never left? Story 1. The Ghosts in the Forest. My wife Cheryl and I had just moved into our new house tucked away at the edge of a small rural town. It was everything we'd wanted: quiet, private, with a huge backyard that opened up into a dense stretch of forest. It felt like the kind of place where you could breathe again. But almost immediately, something felt wrong. Our first night after settling in and turning off the lights, we were lying in bed when we heard music. Not from a neighbor, not from inside the house. It was drifting in through the trees. I got up and cracked open the window, expecting to hear a party or maybe a distant radio. But what I heard was a song from a different era. It was "Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf," playing faintly warped, like it was coming from an old phonograph. It echoed through the forest like a broken nursery rhyme, cheerful on the surface, but deeply unsettling when heard at midnight in the middle of nowhere. I turned on the backyard lights, stepped outside. Nothing. Just the sound of wind and trees. And then, the music stopped. The silence that followed was almost worse. Cheryl asked me to come back inside, clearly shaken. I told her it was probably a prank, just kids messing around. But the next night, it got worse. Around 1 a.m., we heard another song. This time it was "Tiptoe Through the Tulips." The same eerie old record sound, only louder, closer. I looked out into the yard and saw something sitting in the grass. I went outside and picked it up. An old, cracked, portable radio. As I turned it off, I heard Cheryl scream from the upstairs window. "There's someone behind you." My blood ran cold. I turned around slowly. At the edge of the forest, barely illuminated by the porch light, stood 3 figures. Still, silent, watching. I couldn't make out their faces. They didn't move, didn't speak. Just stood there, barely swaying with the wind. I ran back inside, slammed the door, and locked everything I could. We called the police. They showed up 15 minutes later, flashlights sweeping through the woods. But of course, there was nothing. No footprints. No radio. No sign that anyone had been there. The officers were polite, but I could tell they didn't believe us. Since that night, the songs have continued. Always different. Always old. Sometimes it's a lullaby, other times a carnival tune. It always starts around the same time after midnight. And it always ends the same way, with silence so complete it makes your ears ring. We've stopped going outside after dark. We keep the lights on. We've installed cameras, alarms. But that feeling of being watched never really left. I don't know who those figures were, or if they were even human. All I know is something is out there, and it's been playing games with us from the second we moved in. So if you ever move into a house by the woods and you hear music that shouldn't be playing, don't follow it. Don't investigate. And whatever you do, don't stay too long outside after dark. 'Cause not everything that sings in the forest wants to be found. Story 2. Footsteps in the silent night. Buying my first home was supposed to be a milestone, a symbol of independence, of finally stepping out from under my parents' roof. I chose a quiet place in the suburbs, just far enough from the city to be peaceful, but close enough to feel safe. The neighborhood was clean, well lit, the kind of place where you assume nothing bad ever happens. And for a while, it didn't. But then came that night. It was just past 2:10 a.m. I was in bed drifting between sleep and wakefulness when I heard something I hadn't expected to hear in my new home. Footsteps. Soft, slow, deliberate, moving across the floor downstairs. Now you have to understand, I grew up with a father who was a night owl. I used to hear him walking around late at night getting water checking locks. So at first my brain tried to make sense of it that way. But then reality hit me like ice water. I lived alone now. I sat up, heart pounding, listening. The footsteps stopped, right at the bottom of the staircase, and then breathing. Not mine. A slow, raspy breath as if someone or something was standing there, just beneath the stairs, waiting. I grabbed the baseball bat beside my bed, carefully opened my door. The hallway stretched out before me, dark and silent. But that presence, I could feel it, like I wasn't alone. I peered over the railing, and that's when I saw it. A man, tall, wearing a black hoodie, his face covered by a plain white mask, no features, no expression. He was staring directly up at me, not moving, not blinking. I froze. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Then I shouted, "Get out!" But he didn't flinch. Instead, he slowly turned and walked calmly to the front door. He opened it and stepped outside. I rushed down, slammed the door shut, locked everything. Then I heard it. Another door, slamming, from the back of the house. There was someone else. I panicked, called the police. They arrived minutes later, did a full sweep. Whoever had been inside, they were gone. But they left signs. Muddy footprints on the tile. A shattered flower pot near the side entrance. Scratches on the window pane like someone had tried to pry it open. The officers told me to stay somewhere else for the night. I didn't. I couldn't leave the house unguarded. That night, I sat in the living room with every light on, clutching the bat, jumping at every sound, waiting for another footstep. It never came. But something tells me that wasn't their first time inside. They knew the layout. They moved too confidently, too quietly, which means they might have been here before, and they might come back. Now I've installed cameras. I sleep with a weapon nearby. I check every lock twice. But none of that really helps when your sense of safety, the one thing you rely on most in your own home, is shattered. I bought this place to find peace. But all I found was a new kind of fear. 'Cause now I know, sometimes the sounds you hear in the night aren't just the house settling. Sometimes they're footsteps. And sometimes they're meant for you. Story 3. The Mysterious Neighbor. Across the canal. I moved into a modest house near a narrow canal in southern Florida. It was quiet, peaceful, the kind of place people retire to after a chaotic life in the city. The canal itself was narrow, maybe 20 feet across, with old wooden docks on either side. Across the water, directly facing my living room window, was another small house. Run down, lifeless. Its windows were always shut, the porch overgrown with weeds. For the first few weeks, I assumed no one lived there. I was wrong. One night, just after 11 p.m., I stepped outside for some air. The moon was bright, casting silver light across the rippling water. That's when I saw it. A light flickered on in the house across the canal, dim yellow and unsteady, like it came from a candle or a dying bulb. Then, he appeared. A man mid-50s, maybe older, thin, with grayish-white hair that fell messily over his face. He stood in the front window, just watching. His body didn't move, not even a twitch, but I could feel it. His eyes were locked onto me. It was the kind of stare that pierces through glass. I quickly stepped inside and shut the curtains. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe he was just curious. Maybe he was harmless. But from that night on, he kept returning. Sometimes he'd appear as early as dusk, sometimes after midnight, always in the same window. Never doing anything, never moving, just staring. I tried waving once, awkwardly. No reaction. Another time I walked outside and called across the canal. "Hey, everything okay over there?" No response. Just that blank stare. Eventually, I stopped trying. One night I came home late from work. It was storming hard rain coming down sideways. I stepped into my dark kitchen, set my keys down. And then I heard something. A knock. 3 soft, deliberate knocks. On the back sliding door. My heart jumped. That door faced the canal, the same side as his house. I turned and saw nothing. Just rain streaking down the glass. Then came the second sound. Shattering glass. From the front of the house. I rushed into the living room. One of the windows had been smashed. A brick lay on the floor, soaked. I called the police immediately, adrenaline surging. When they arrived, I told them about the man across the canal. They checked the place out, and this is where everything twisted. The officer returned and told me that house had been abandoned for over 6 years. No running power, no registered occupant, no signs of recent entry. I couldn't believe it. I'd seen that man, multiple times. I even filmed him once, or at least I thought I had. When I checked the footage, nothing. The window was empty. No man. No light. Just darkness. Now the windows of his house stay dark. But every so often, when I least expect it, I feel it. That stare. That crawling sensation across the back of my neck. Like someone's watching from a place they shouldn't be. From across the water. Or maybe much closer. Some nights I lie in bed and wonder, what if he was never alive? What if I was staring into the house of someone long gone and worse? What if he's no longer across the canal? What if he crossed it? 3 stories, 3 homes, and 1 truth. The walls around you can't always keep the darkness out. Because sometimes, it's already inside. It plays music through the trees. It walks your floors in the dead of night. It waits by the water and windows you don't look at long enough. It watches patiently until you stop watching back. If these stories sent a chill down your spine like this video, subscribe and tap the bell. Because the next story might feel a little too familiar. And if you've ever heard a knock, a song, or seen something out of place, tell your story in the comments below. Because the scariest things aren't always imaginary. They're the ones you can't prove, can't explain, but still feel long after the lights are off. And if you ever hear a song from the forest, don't follow it. Just run.